Hi guys, I've been knitting these socks on my Twitch channel on Saturdays, and not just on my Twitch, but you know, I started them for Socktober, and Rita was asking me quite a lot of questions about how to knit a heel flap. So I thought, rather than it being a dragged out thing on a Twitch stream, I would put it into a video. Yeah. So the way to start is basically knit your sock to its required length. Now obviously I work on 2 at a time socks. Now I'm going to show you the 2 at a time method and explain how to do it if you're only doing 1 sock at a time as well. Once you have got to the method where the socks are long enough for your leg, to the top of, you know, that rough part on the back of your ankle, this is where you then start working the heel flap. And all you do for this, this is my personal preference, okay, before everybody comes screaming at me about that's not the correct way to do it, and you know, what about a short row heel or whatever. I'm doing a heel flap and gusset, and I'm doing it the way that I personally do it, the way that works for me. Okay, this may not work for you, you may not like this method, that's fine. Now I work a 72 stitch sock, so 72 stitches all the way around. The heel flap will be worked on half of those stitches, so 36 stitches. I work the same amount of rows for my stitches, so I will do 36 rows for the heel of my foot. Okay, and I do a slip stitched heel. So basically what that means is that you slip the first stitch and then knit the next stitch, slip the next stitch, so you slip one and you knit one, all the way across your sock. Now, as with the rest of your sock, keep your tension quite tight, okay, because this is where the majority of the damage will occur on your socks, because they rub on the back of your shoes. People are always shocked at how much their feet move within their shoes, and this is why you end up with holey socks, especially if you have ill-fitting shoes. So if you are constantly getting holes in your socks, it might be worth you getting the fit of your shoes checked. Right, now if you are working 2 at a time socks, go straight onto the next one and work the first row of that heel flap in exactly the same way. Now, when you are happy with the first row of your sock or socks, okay, it's the same method for both. You've worked across, you're now going to turn around and work back. Instead of going round like you were doing, okay, you are now going to turn around and go back the way you came once you've untangled your yarn. And all you're going to do is purl straight across. Okay, no slipping, no, except the first stitch. Slip the first stitch and then purl all the others. Takes a little bit of getting used to, because obviously you've got some slipped stitches and you've got the rest of your sock in front of you instead of behind you, unless you knit your sock sort of in an inside out manner, which I used to do. Something else you can always try doing, this is how I learned to do it. It's called knitting backwards. Okay, now you can turn and work a purl row like you've just seen me do, or you can not turn and you can go backwards, and this is how you might see somebody who is left-handed knitting. It takes practice, okay, Okay, it took me ages to learn how to do it, but now that I can do it, this method is also very, very useful when you've finished the heel flap and we do the short rows on the heels. Okay, and what you do to do knitting backwards, you insert your left tip into the back of the stitch like so. You wrap your yarn across the top and around the needle. Can you see how I've got that wrapped? Yeah, and then you put the stitch onto the left needle. So you go like that, wrap your yarn, if it helps, try and watch how somebody purls and mirror it. Actually work like a mirror, and just go all the way to the end. So that is 2 rows. Okay, you want to repeat that, what you've just done, across the 2 socks. So slip 1, knit 1 on a right side row and then purl on a wrong side row until you have worked 36 rows. So those 2 rows 13 times total, and then we will work on the actual heel, that little round bit at the bottom, and then how to actually put it all together as one. Now, to go backwards, insert your needle, your left needle, through the back of this stitch, like so. You see how it's sitting on there? If I loosen it right up for you, that's the stitch. So from the front it looks like you're purling it. You want to slip that first stitch. Stick your needle in the back of the next stitch, like so. Now I use my thumb and my ring finger to pivot the needle for me. So I pivot it, I go across the top and around, so the yarn is going this way and then under. I then lift this red stitch here over the yarn that I've just wrapped, see it there? And then I pull my left needle out and through. Okay, so do it again. We're now doing the black stitch. So we go in the back of the black stitch, pivot your needle and wrap the yarn over the top and then the bottom. Lift your right needle over that yarn that you've just wrapped and then pull your left needle from the back of this stitch here to the front of the stitch, leaving that yarn that you wrapped in place. That's your stitch, that's your new stitch, and then just pull the black stitch off the needle. Okay, so I'll show you again. So go in through the back, pivot and wrap, lift needle over the black yarn. Okay, so you can see there how it is. Bring the needle through to the front, and that's your stitch made. Now you just got to slide it off the needle. If it helps while you are figuring out how to do it backwards, turn your work and insert the needle as if you're going to purl the stitch. Now turn your work again and look at how the needle is sitting in there. Okay, excuse me a minute. Oi! Then turn it back so that the wrong side of the work is facing you and wrap the yarn around it. Look how the yarn goes round, and then turn it back so that you can see it in motion. Okay, and keep turning it backwards and forwards until you can see how it works, to show you how to knit backwards. Okay, this is how quite a lot of left-handed knitters knit. And I'll tell you what, when you get to the short row section of your heel, you'll be glad of not turning the work. So I would recommend you practice this knitting backwards on your heels. Okay, especially if, like me, you hold the yarn in your left hand. If you don't, this is also a good way to practice holding the yarn in your left hand for the knitting backwards. And then you might find it easier when the time comes for knitting forwards, as it were. So I've done that heel, now I'm going to go on to the next heel. So grab the yarn. Now to tension the yarn, so I'll just hold it there for a sec. It goes over the top, yeah, and then I wrap around again. And that's it, that's the only way I tension, just wrap twice. So I'm going to slide that first stitch because we just want to slip that one. I don't swivel my needle as much with the second sock because obviously I've got the weight of the first sock to deal with. So all I tend to do then is I move my hand forward instead of swiveling it. Just makes it a little bit more awkward when I'm swiveling an entire sock. So yeah, I move my hand forward on the second sock. You may find as you get towards these stitches that they're quite sort of loose, but you know, because you're slipping stitches, they don't grip the needles quite so easily. So bring your forefinger in to help hold them in place. And then the last stitch, wrap and bring it across. Now repeat that until, sorry about the noise. Could you go in the front room please? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sorry about the noise. 5-year-old's supposed to be eating his dinner. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, repeat that until you have worked same amount of stitches but in rows. So if you've got 36 stitches, you want to be knitting 36 rows. That's only on obviously half the sock, okay, because I'm doing a 72-inch sock. Now, so you'll be merrily knitting along and you'll go, shit, I can't remember how many rows I've done. This is when the slip stitch pattern comes in great. Now that looks like a regular knitted pattern until you pull it apart, and then you can see that there are 2 little stitches. That's what these V's are. Let's see if I can get that a little bit more in focus for you. Oop, a bit too far. Okay, so here, this V is 1 stitch, okay? Now, next to that V is 2 little V's. Now these little V's are the correct amount of rows. The big V's stand for every 2 rows because every other row you slipped that stitch. So instead of knitting it, you just stretched it slightly. to make it cover 2 rows. So when you're trying to work out how many rows have you done, now bearing in mind if you've just done a purl row or you've knit back backwards, then you've done an even amount of rows. So what you do is you count the amount of big V's you've got. Okay, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that red one. Okay, and then the black one at the top as well, which makes 13. That means I've done 26 rows. Okay, now I need to do 10 more rows, because obviously 12 stretched stitches, try saying that really fast 5 times, is 24 rows. Okay, because you stretched it once going that way, but then you pulled it coming back the other way. Yeah, does that make sense? I really hope it does. So yeah, I've done 26 rows. I need to do 10 more, and then we'll be turning the heel. And that is when this knitting back backwards really does come in handy, and I will be turning the heel using that method. You can, when you do it, turn your work and purl back if you really can't get the hang of it, or you don't like doing it that way or whatever. But I will be doing it that way just for quickness and ease personally, but you can always purl back. So yeah, I'll be back when I've done those 10 rows. Okay, so you've worked your heel flap, you've done your 36 rows or however many stitches you're working on, the same amount of rows. Now we're going to turn the heel. Okay, now what you want to do on this is you want to work half the stitches. So as I'm doing a 36 stitch heel, that means I need to do 18. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let me just move over a little bit, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You now want to work 2 more stitches. So this is your halfway point here. Okay, so do 2 more stitches and then do slip, slip, and then knit those 2 stitches. Okay, a slip slip knit is quite a common way of decreasing, sorry. Okay, so you've done your slip slip knit, now you're going to knit 1. Now you're going to turn or knit back backwards. Okay, so you can either turn the work and purl back, or you
making a FaceTime call to Mum.
Cancel. Wow. So yes, you can either turn it and purl back, or you can knit back backwards. So you slip your first stitch, you purl the decrease stitch, your 2 stitches extra, and you're now back at that halfway point. Okay, but you're purling a total of 5, okay, because you're going to go 2 stitches beyond that halfway point the other way. All right, because you knit 2 going the first way, now you're purling 2 going back the other way. Now what you want to do is purl 2 together. Okay, so there's your 2 stitches. Wrap your yarn. It's the same as just doing 1 stitch, but you're just doing it with 2. And then purl 1. Okay, now that you have started the heel, you're going to work in stocking stitch or stockinette stitch if you're in the States. Okay, we're not working on a slip 1 knit 1 anymore. So now what you do is you slip your first stitch and you knit until you get to one stitch before the gap, and you can see the gap, it's quite clear there, look. That's where we stopped and turned the work to purl back. So knit up until the last stitch. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to go slip that stitch and slip the next stitch. Now knit those together and knit one, like so. Now go back the other way. So go slip and purl one. Right, so I've now got, this is my gap where I turned before, okay, and I'm at the last stitch, so you're going to purl that one and the stitch after the gap. You're going to purl them together like that, and then purl one. Now go back the other way, so slip one, work the 2 stitches either side of that gap, and then knit one. And you work on one sock at a time doing this bit. Okay, you will go back to working 2 socks in a little while, but for now we are literally just working one heel at a time. Okay, so we're up to that gap again, look, there's that gap there, and we're going to purl the 2 stitches together to close that gap, and then purl the next stitch. Now keep working like that, and as you do you'll notice that your work starts to pooch out a little bit. Okay, keep working this way for the next few rows. Okay, so at this point you have got a gap and 1 stitch at each end of the needle, or you should have if you've done it right. Now the trick is to work your right side row. So slip one and knit to the end all the way across. My thumb hurts. I don't know. It's been a while since I've spent this much time knitting. So go right up until the stitch before the gap. You should have a nice little pouch there, which is your heel turn. Now what you're going to do is you're going to slip knit those last 2 stitches and do not turn your work. Okay, don't turn your work. Now you can let go of this stitch for now, because the needle for now, because you're going to work on picking up down the side of the heel. Okay, and the easiest way to do that is with this needle, and you've got to look at the stitches on the side. So you can see there the stitches that you slipped. So you can see there is, if I move that yarn out of the way, there's like a V there. Now what you're going to do is you're going to insert this needle with the stitches already on it underneath those 2 bits of the V. Okay, So go under the 2 bits of the V, like so. Wrap your yarn as if to knit, and then pull the yarn back through. It is a little bit fiddly, but it is possible. Now you're going to go down to the next V, which is that black one. So put your stitch in, wrap your yarn and pull it out. And you want to do that on every slip stitch all the way down. It's a bit hard for me to do because I'm not used to doing it up in the air. Okay. And when you're doing it, make sure that you are uncurling the heel flap, because the flap edge will be curled over. Okay, so you want to make sure you are definitely picking up the edge of the stitch, or the edge of the flap on those edges. So you see the V's going down the back. That's what you're picking up, those V's there. Okay, so make sure that you go under and pick them both up. Now some people prefer to do this with a crochet hook, which you could do. Do it whatever way feels comfortable for you. So I've now picked up all the slip stitches, but as you can see there's going to be quite a gap when I rejoin them. Now you can pull them tight and it should all even out. I personally prefer to pick up another stitch, so I just tend to grab as you stretch the yarn out, as you stretch the sock out, sorry. I tend to grab, you see that little red one at the end there, and I will grab a couple of loops worth, and there's another stitch. Now you're moving on to the next sock now. So what you're going to do is you're going to repeat that process. Okay. You are going to excuse my dog, my son's just walked in and she's whining because he hasn't come in here to fuss her. So you're now going to again slip on knit one to the halfway point. So that's 1, 2, 17, 18 plus 2. Don't forget to do 2 more stitches. So do your 2 more stitches. Now do your slip slip knit, and knit 1. Now you're going to go back the other way, so you're going to slip 1, you're going to purl your slip slip knitted stitches, and you're going to purl 2, which is going to bring you back to your middle stitch again, yeah? So you want to purl another 2, now purl 2 together, and purl 1. Turn your work and go back the other way, and just do exactly what you did on the last heel. Okay, so you've done your heel, you've come all the way down the side of the second sock, and you've picked up that little extra stitch. So now we're going to start working in the round again. Okay, so sort your needles out. and you are literally just going to knit straight across this. If you are doing a sock with a pattern on, you would pick up your pattern again here, okay? And from now on you will do pattern across this bit and stocking stitch across the back, okay? Don't forget, make sure your yarn's pulled nice and tight, and knit all the way across. Now work your second sock front. This is the front, or this was what was originally the front of your leg and is now the top of your foot. Don't forget, pull that nice and tight. Now, turn your work like so. Prep your needles. I like to work my socks so that the front or top of your foot, so the front of your leg and top of your foot stays on one needle, and that the back of the leg and the bottom of your foot, including all your extra heel stitches, stay on the other side. So all your extra stitches are going to be on this needle now. This needle just stays at the 36 stitches per sock. Okay, so you want to pull this one out, and then what you're sliding up there are the stitches that go, that's your short row stitches there, and the side of the heel flap there. Okay, so slide them all up. Now, this is a little bit fiddly to do if you're not used to it, because what you're going to do now is pick up your stitches to go back the other way, or back up the other side. So I've picked up that extra little bit. Don't worry if when you're doing it about counting them, it really doesn't matter, okay? It will work itself out. So pick up and wrap for each stitch going up the side. So I hope that's in focus for you. I'm trying to hold it up so that you guys have got a close-up of it, and I'm not used to working like that. I'm used to working on my lap. I also apologise for the background noise. My son's just got home from work. And seems intent on making as much noise as possible. So between him and the dog, I was hoping to sort of get this finished before we get home, but just make sure that these stitches that you've got dangling don't fall off your needle, okay? Because that is just really annoying if that happens. If your work is pretty tight, that shouldn't happen. To be honest, the only reason I don't use a crochet hook is because when I'm sat doing this properly, I can usually do it quite fast. It's only because I'm trying to... Right, now, when you get to the top, can you see? You've got this black V and then this red V. Okay, so you want to pick both of those up. Like so. Now, this is future me just jumping in to tell you that this is now the beginning of your round and that you might want to stick a stitch marker in between the two needles. Okay, just an FYI. If you remember, there's a gap here, yeah, because we didn't work that last row. So what you're going to do now is knit them together. Okay, you're not going to slip slip knit because the slip slip knit would lean them the other way. Okay, so knit those two together and that is it. You have successfully turned a heel. But now you're going to sit there and go, oh, hang on, I've got all these extra stitches. That's fine. What you're going to do now is knit all the way. Sorry about the barking. The dog is now insisting that my son give her attention. So she's gone in the other room to bark at him. Poor bloke. He's been at work all day. And it's like... Yes! Yeah, he's got bananas. She's glaring at him. Yeah, you can give her a tiny, tiny little bit. She's just gone in and scrounged banana off of him. Now, you're going to work until the last 3 stitches. It's a little bit tight and it, you know, sometimes you feel like you're fighting because you've got all of these stitches packed onto this needle, but that's not going to remain the case. You're already going to start working on decreasing them. So go down until you have 3 stitches left. Okay. Now, you want to knit those 2 stitches together. And then knit 1. Okay, do the same for the other sock. Pick it up, pick up all those stitches and don't forget when you get to the top to knit those 2 stitches together. So I've picked them all up. I'm going to knit those 2 together and I'm just going to keep knitting to the last 3 stitches. Don't forget, knit 2 together, knit 1 on that last stitch. Now you're going to pattern across the front. As you would normally. Now you're going to work up the side of the second side of your heel flap. Okay, so you're going to knit 1 and then this time you're going to go slip slip knit. Okay, and then you're just going to knit all the way to the end. Now, as I said, you don't want to worry too much whether you've got the bang on correct amount of stitches, which is why I don't give a stitch count here, because it's not 100% necessary. Provided you didn't pick up 4 billion stitches down one side and only 10 up the other, then you should be alright. What you're going to do after this as you're then going to knit around. Okay. Then you're going to work around where you knit together on one side, knit two together on one side, and slip slip knit on the other. And you'll keep doing that. You'll knit one round plain, or one round without any decreasing, and then one round where you decrease. And then you will knit one round where you don't decrease. One round you do decrease, and one round where you don't decrease. When you get down to your original number of stitches, which in total should be 72, you then just continue to work with no more decreasing. Okay, now if you get down there and you find you've got an odd number of stitches, you've got 73 stitches, that's fine. You can either continue to work like that, or you can just on your next round just do a decrease on one side, okay, to get you down to the 72. Really doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Alright, and you just keep working like that. Where's me on? There it is. All the way. So we're now on the second sock, so I'm going to knit the first stitch like so. Let's put some stitches up, and then go slip, slip, insert your left-handed needle back in and knit. Okay, pull that nice and tight, and then knit to the end. Because the start of your round is somewhere here. Okay, like I said, it's not majorly important, but it's at the end of the side of this flap. Okay, that's why I said you're technically doing one row decreasing and one row out decreasing. So I'm actually not on the same round all the way here. I was on one round and then I switched to the next round somewhere up here. So I'm now on the plain round, okay, which is why I don't decrease at the other end. If you find that a little bit too confusing, by all means decrease when you've got all the stitches facing you, but you know, whatever. So keep working like that. One round decreasing, and one round with no decreasing, one round decreasing, one round not decreasing, until you get back down to your original cast on amount. So whatever you worked here, if you worked 60, 64, 72, 80, whatever amount it is, that's what you're going back down to. If you suffer from swollen feet or gout or anything that would make your feet swell quite a lot, then it's trial and error as to what size you need, okay? But yeah, keep working until you are down to the required amount of stitches. I'll come back to you at the end of the gusset just to show you what it should look like, she says. So you should now be down to your original stitch count, unless you are working unusually sized socks, you know, for swollen feet or whatever. You should now be down to the same amount of stitches that you had before you worked the heel in the first place. And what you should have is something that resembles this. Okay, this is the leg of the sock here. Hang on, and I will demonstrate. So this is the leg of the sock here, and this is your heel flap that you worked here. Okay, let's see if I can get you some focus going on here. So this was where you worked on half the stitches, and you did slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, and slip one, knit, and then purled back down here. Then at this point here you worked your short rows to give you this nice curved bit before picking up the side of the heel flap and then working in the round again. This is where you did your slip slip knit at either end, at one end, and your knit two together at the other end, and that's what you should have, is basically knitting coming out of a right angle. Okay, there'll be no gaps, there'll be no funny loops. It will have picked it up all neatly, and it will seamlessly carry on along the bottom of the foot. So now that you're back to your original stitch count, what you need to do is work the top of the foot or the front, or what was the front of the leg in the original pattern. Okay, then across the bottom you work in knit stitch, which will then give you a nice stocking stitch across the bottom and just on the sides of the foot. This gusset piece is also in stocking stitch. You can do pattern gussets and all that, but while you're learning, I would recommend you just do a nice knitted, simple, straightforward sock until you've got the hang of it. Okay, and then you basically just work in pattern across the front or the top of the foot and stocking stitch or knit stitch along the sole of the foot. And I would work that, personally, my personal preference is to work that until the tip of your smallest toe. So that's usually the little toe on the end. So work to the tip of the toe. Obviously my nails are long, they're not like this on my feet, but yeah, so that would be here, at which point you start decreasing for your toes. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions or anything like that, or I mean, do you do it differently? Tell me how you do it down below. Let's share this, because heels are what scare a lot of people who have not knit socks. Okay, this is just one way to do it. This is what I've developed doing over, I've been knitting socks for about 10 years now, and this is my way to do it. Okay, it just works best for me. It fits my foot the best. This may not work for you. Okay, a different heel type may work for you. Also look up short row heels. Look up the Sweet Tomato heel by Kat Bordai. Let's see. A toe up sock might work better for you, where instead of casting on at the top of the leg, you cast on at the toes and you work your way up. That's another way to do it. There are several different heels you could work. An afterthought heel might work for you. It's worth trying them until you find one that you put on and you think, actually, do you know what? That's the best fit for me. I will say that most people I talk to prefer this, because you can adjust it to fit you. If you have, wider legs, you can do a bigger stitch count here. But say you have small narrow feet, well, you decrease just extra stitches off of the gusset to give you a smaller foot. If you have skinny ankles but flat feet, for example, you could not decrease as much. So instead of decreasing back down to the same stitch count you had on the leg, you stop a little bit shorter so that you've got more stitches on the foot to make room for the spread of your feet. It's a very, very, very versatile heel. So yeah, let me know what you do down below. If you are already a sock knitter and you've come this way, is there anything that I didn't explain very well to you guys? Is there anything you want me to go back over or anything like that? Please do leave any comments, questions, suggestions or feedback down below. I would really, really, really appreciate it. A thumbs up wouldn't go amiss either. I would really, really appreciate that as well. Do feel free to subscribe to my channel. I mostly do bullet journaling videos, but I am now also doing live streams on Twitch where I do knitting, spinning, fibre crafts, all like that, and then I import them over here. So the mix is quite eclectic, I suppose you could say. Feel free to join me on my Twitch channel or any of my social media. The link is down below. I really, really appreciate you giving me the time. I realise this is quite a long video, but that's just how it goes when you're trying to explain it to somebody else. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Take it easy, guys. I hope you have warm feet. Bye.